Focusing here through western Pennsylvania, we still, much later today apparently, are going to stop in Pittsburgh, and then it's going to be on to eastern Ohio, where a lot of the sort of political geography is very similar, though Ohio itself has been more competitive in presidential elections. Richard.
MSNBC's Casey Hunt in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Yes, it's going to be a longer day as they get a little bit behind schedule. Casey, thanks for giving us the very latest as you're there with the Clinton campaign. I want to bring in our panel Republican strategist, Susan Del Percio. We have Eleanor Clift, Washington correspondent for the Daily Beast. We also have Jason Johnson, politics editor at Root.com and Sirius XM radio host. Let's start with you here, Susan. We heard the message that she's been giving. She has a challenge, certainly, with blue-collar voters. She has a challenge with unions, as was mentioned by Casey Hunt. How did she do in terms of the points that she was making?
Well, she's doing everything she can and has to win back these voters. These were voters who would have normally been Democrats. We're seeing it across the country. Union workers who are going to Donald Trump because they're frustrated with not having jobs. Certainly trade is another issue, which she is now taking up. She did touch on. And I think the idea of just bringing America forward, we can do these things here. We can have jobs here. And frankly, I think that when she brings Donald Trump into it, saying he makes things overseas, that kind of puts a point on it. Yeah,
and that fine point here, Eleanor, as she turned around to allude to her husband's shirt, Bill's shirts, if you will, and it was actually the former president wearing that shirt. She was really sort of making that point without saying it, bringing up that question of Donald Trump and his truisms, if you will, that he has been putting out there of where his clothes are made, and that, you know, he is all for American workers.
Yes, personalizing the criticism, putting a face on it, or in this case, putting a shirt on it, right, I think is very effective. And the voters that she's now speaking to, they were Clinton Democrats in 1992. So she's going to try to bring them back home and make them Clinton Democrats once again. And the Democrats have struggled in many elections. They have the leadership of the labor movement, but they often do not have as much of the rank and file because, frankly, the policies that have been enacted in Washington, pushed by both Republicans and Democrats, have left this segment of America behind. I thought she did very well being specific about the policies that she wants to lay out. And I think she said that she was a member of the first ever manufacturing caucus when she was in the Senate. That was news to me. So
didn't know there was one there, Eleanor.
I didn't know there was one, exactly.
Exactly. Jason, I'll get your thoughts on how the secretary did here. What did you think of her tone, her delivery, the points that she was making? You know, there was the squeegee story, for instance, that really brought her, if you will, down to the factory floor.
Yeah, I think that Hillary Clinton has finally learned a lesson on how to speak to people and not just at people. She occasionally had a tendency to lecture people. I think in 2008, I think she's mastered that. I think we're seeing the old Clinton playbook come out again. You know, back in 1992, Bill Clinton actually attacked George Bush for making campaign signs in South America. So the Clintons know that you can communicate with people by saying, look, I'm not just for America, I wear America, I eat, sleep, and breathe America. And by sort of needling Donald Trump on that, showing the inconsistency, saying that he's saying one thing, but I'm here doing another. That's the message that she has to get out there, because she's never going to beat him on personality, but she can beat him on facts, and she can beat him in the heart.
All right, stay with us, panel, if you can. I want to add another subject, one that is certainly trending today. Donald Trump is off the campaign trail this weekend, but he's not out of the headlines. He's reacted for the first time to Khizr Khan, the father of a fallen Muslim soldier, who delivered a passionate speech against Trump at the DNC. Take a listen.
Probably looked like a nice guy to me. His wife, if you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. She probably, maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me, but plenty of people have written that.
What would you say to that father?
Well, I'd say we've had a lot of problems with radical Islamic terrorism. That's what I'd say.
He said you have sacrificed nothing and no one.
Well, that sounds, who wrote that? Did Hillary's script writers write it?
How would you answer that, Father? What sacrifice have you made for your country?
I think I've made a lot of sacrifices. I work very, very hard. I've created thousands and thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. I think
those are sacrifices?
Oh, sure. I think they're sacrifices.
Jason, let's get to you. How did Donald Trump do in answering what was such an emotional moment for the country? as we saw the father look back at the loss of his own son. Did he say what he needed to say here?
Richard, he can't help but be racist. It's so amazing. The first thing he says is, well, you know, I don't think the guy's wife could speak, because it's basically, you know how those people are. I mean, the first thing he says is making this cultural dog whistle attack on this family, as opposed to saying, I appreciate that young man's sacrifice. These aren't the Muslims we're talking about. I'm talking about, you know, Donald Trump completely fumbled this answer, but then again, he has still managed to stay close in the polls by having this kind of behavior. So I don't think he's going to learn his lesson, but that was a terrible answer, and it just reinforces the same kind of negative stereotypes and negative attitudes that he's presented thus far that's making it hard for him to work well with minorities.
And I want to get to Eleanor on this, but first I want to play a little bit of sound here saying that the wife, as you were alluding to there, Jason, was not allowed to speak at the DNC. But let's go to MSNBC's The Last Word. Last night, the wife did speak out, and this is what she said.
It was very nervous because I cannot see my son's picture when I cannot even come in the room where his pictures are. And that's why when I saw the picture on my bag, I couldn't take it, and I controlled myself at that time. So it is very hard.
Eleanor, clearly the pain still there. When you put that up against what Donald Trump was telling George Stephanopoulos, there is no equal sign there.
No, the message sent and I believe received when that couple appeared on the stage in Philadelphia was that you can wear a hijab in this country and be a patriotic American. And secondly, when Donald Trump says, oh, the speechwriters just wrote it, undermining what was so clearly this man's personal pain and passion, I think it's pretty despicable on Mr. Trump's part.
And I do want to get to that shortly, but Susan, we're talking about a U.S. soldier that lost his life, and we put that on that backdrop. You know, Donald Trump could have handled this much more easily.
And it's in his nature to. And one of the things that Donald Trump has going for him is that on the softer side is his family, is his children, and that relationship they have. Plus, he's had a very good relationship with veterans. And all he had to say is there is no greater service to your, you know, this soldier.
The veterans community is probably looking at us going.
There was nothing. That's the greatest sacrifice anyone can make. And when asked about what sacrifices he can make, he just said, you could simply say, I've been blessed with wonderful children. They're here with me. I could never compare any loss to that.
Right.
It would have been easy.
It would have been a simple one line, as we're saying. Jason, I do want to get to you on this, but it was brought up by Eleanor here. Khan telling the New York Times this, nothing from the speech he said was the product of the campaign, including his dig at Mr. Trump's lack of military service. It all flowed pretty easily because he had been thinking about these things for quite a while. This is what Khan had said. So Jason, as we look again at the response, instead going after whether the message was real, whether it was genuine, instead of saying it was very difficult, it was good to hear the sacrifice that was made and the emotion in that family, again, that contrast.
Well, yes, but that is classic Donald Trump. His reaction to everything is always, something's not right here. I don't like President Obama's body language. I don't think, you know, he constantly sort of throws invective and insults and suggestions at people rather than addressing the substance of what they're saying.
Eleanor, how long will this last? How long will the Democrats maybe or maybe not push this response that Donald Trump put out in the last day?
Oh, I think that these responses on his part will continue to echo throughout the campaign. And I was thinking Mr. Trump could use a speechwriter in drafting his response to this, but then I thought to myself,
happen,
I don't want him to have a speechwriter, because I think we do want to see who he is and what he's about. And I'm going to quote Hillary Clinton saying, you know, this is the real Donald Trump. There is no other Donald Trump. So we got to get used to it or do something about it.
And let's face it, it'll probably stay in the headlines until the next Donald Trump rally. That's when it'll change, because he'll say something else. He's constantly changing whatever the storyline is.
The next Trumpism might be.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Susan Del Perso, Eleanor Cliff, Jason Johnson. You'll be back later in the hour. Thank you all three. Next.